I would one day be married and then divorce and then have to put my life back together.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of, I just remember my wedding came together like so beautifully. It was like we were young. I was 24, and he was 25. Even through my divorce, I've seen my leadership unfold, and just what kind of grit that is within me.
Yeah.
You know,
being able to have male figures in this community to come in and mentor my child and help my child navigate these feelings and how the rejection and just different things, how to show up, because not only are you a Black male in the world, you're a Black gay male in the world. And so you are going through different types of things, and you're embracing this early on, right? Don't get stuck on, oh, I made a mistake. Make that mistake, figure out what you need to do to pivot and keep moving and keep going forward. You got to keep putting one step in front of the other. So
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breaking Rank, the podcast where we lead without permission. I am here today with special guest Nadira Ford-Robbins. Hi, Nadira. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, I am in the lovely Omaha, Nebraska right now, and I'm so excited to see you in person. I'm so glad that we got to sit down and have this discussion. I have wanted to interview Nadira for a while now, and for a lot of reasons. This episode is really going to focus on courage and overcoming adversity. And Nadira, you have a really powerful story.
Thank you.
And before we get into the heavy stuff, I want to just take a step back and talk about where are you from? How did you grow up? What details about your childhood do you think shaped who you are today?
Oh, wow. So thank you for having me again. I grew up in Staten Island, New York. I lived there until I was 9. I come from a very large family, so my mother has 8 children. My dad, that's a different story.
Same here.
Yes. My dad has children with multiple women, so but he was with my mother for 13 years. And so he lived with us in the house until I was 7. And so we had a couple of years in New York before we moved to Omaha, where my mom was just a single parent. But the transition to Omaha, Nebraska was because in the 80s, my mom's family had relocated to Omaha. It was more residential. They liked how it looked here. So they relocated here, and we were one of her only family members that were still in New York. She had aunts in New York. She had cousins in New York. However, we didn't see them as much. We saw a lot of my dad's family growing up. And so there was some of that isolation there. Her mother, my grandma, would come and visit. Occasionally, my aunt would come and visit, and my cousins, but for the most part, we grew up around my dad's family. And then after the separation, she needed help with her 8 kids, so her family convinced her to relocate to Omaha and that she would have a better network of support. And initially, the idea was that we would move to Omaha for a year, get back on her feet, and then go back to New York. But 30 plus years later, I'm still here in Omaha. So growing up, the dynamic for me, and when we talk about leadership, I think it's important to know that initially I was the youngest of 6 kids, so I was number 6. And then when I was 8, my mom had my little sister Ariel, and then my little brother Poppy a year after that. So it was an interesting dynamic to be the youngest for 8 years. I got to see my mother go through school and put herself through college and become a registered nurse. And so everyone else was in school, so she decided to go back and get a degree. So she started off with her associates in nursing, and while she was in college, I went to the college daycare, the College of Staten Island. And so, when the daycare would close, sometimes she would have night classes, and I would be in her night classes with her. I would be with her when she would go talk to financial aid. So that is shaping for me higher education. It's shaping women in leadership. The women that she would talk to, everyone I saw her talk to in the offices were women. And of course, my daycare teachers were women. And so we would do that. I would see my mom grind. My dad would take us to the school sometimes and pick us up sometimes. But more often than not, we were taking the bus. And so multiple buses, you're transferring and doing what you have to do. So I saw her doing that with me in tow. And so early on, education was cemented for me. And so then naturally I excelled in school and did well in school. Always got honor roll and accolades. I got the Presidential Award for Education signed by Bill Clinton and things of that nature. And so that kind of shaped my grind and my hustle. I just always saw my mom going to get the bag, you know? And so after she graduated, she was working the night shift in the hospitals and what have you. And, you know, there were some things that were unfortunate in her relationship with my dad that we experienced. And, you know, that led to the demise of the relationship. And then we moved to Omaha. And from here, we just kind of went into a state of, we were always in a 2-parent household, never struggled. And if we did struggle, I'm not gonna say we didn't struggle, but as children, we didn't notice that we were struggling. We were not struggling to the point of where it felt like we were in poverty. But when we made our relocation to Omaha, we stayed with my grandmother for 3 months, and then my mom had to branch out on her own, and so we stayed in low-income housing, which people call the projects. So we stayed in the projects for 3 years, and that was a culture shock because in New York, if you're in the projects, it's like low, right? And so we're like, what? Like we didn't come from this. Like, what is this, right? But it was all for my mom, you know, needing to get back on her feet. So she did. She started working at the hospitals again. Eventually got into corrections doing nursing. And so we transitioned from that to our own house. And then, so again, seeing my mother rise from the ashes, right? You had this like devastating blow and you got to put your life back together. And just a really great example for me in my future, right? Not knowing that I would one day be married and then divorce and then have to put my life back together. So yeah, it's kind of background.
And I met you in Omaha, and I've always seen you take on leadership positions. Like when we were in undergrad, even, you know, you were always in charge of something, whether it could be a dance team, it could be a sorority, it could be a, you know, whatever it was, like Nadira's gonna be the president of whatever it is at some point. Like some people just exude leadership, right? And so I met you, you were already doing your thing. We got to be very close, and I was at your wedding. And I remember your wedding. Tell me about your wedding day.
Wow. So I just remember my wedding came together like so beautifully. It was like we were young. I was 23, 24, and he was 25. And so, you know, you're starting out. I had already had a child from a relationship in college. And then my ex-husband and I had gotten back together after college. We were high school sweethearts. And so, and we got together because we both did drill team. And so that was the place that kind of brought us together. We enjoyed that. He was a drummer, I was a dancer, and things of that nature. I've always enjoyed choreography, learning it, teaching it, and what have you. And so when we decided that we were gonna get married, we were younger, we were starting out, so it's not like we had a lot of money, right? And so I just remember like bartering to get things done. So it's like, okay, he was a graphic designer, so we told the photographer, if you can do our wedding pictures, we'll do your website, right? And things like that. And then we have family members that helped. His grandmother made our wedding cake. She made cakes and baked on the side. And so every grandkid, she would make their wedding cake, and beautiful fountain cake. And so we didn't have to worry about that expense. And then the DJ was one of my soror's husbands, and we got a discount with that. And then the caterer was my mom's best friend, and my mom's best friend has catered all of my events. And typically she's like, just buy the food and I'll do everything else. And so, everything came together so beautifully. I had a friend that I worked with at the time who decorated for me and did my invitations. And then my ex-husband's aunt was really good at putting the program together and knowing like, okay, how do you want to design this? She did my flowers and for the bridesmaids and, order of service. And she just told me to pick out my songs and pick out my flowers, and we did what we had to do. And so I had all of my sisters and brothers at my wedding, my cousins and all of his siblings, and it was a good time. We had a good time.
I was there. It was fun. We had a good time.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And at that time you're like, okay, so for me, I was like, okay, this is my forever, because, we started out in high school, we had that 4 years apart. And so I'm thinking, okay, we had college to learn ourselves. Now we're back together. And so this must be meant to be. But lo and behold, life had other plans. And I can't necessarily say that I am disappointed with those plans, because even through my divorce, I've seen my leadership unfold. And just what kind of grit that is within me. Kind of character development. I used to read this book, I think it's called Faith in the Valley by Iyanla Vanzant. And one thing she talked about was like, life will always have peaks and valleys, right? But when you have your valley moments, those are there to teach you and fortify your character. So when you go into like a battle, you go in there with what you have, the skills that you have, but you come out with other skills that were fortified in the battle, right? You might have picked up a new weapon that you have to use. You fought your way through, and on the other side, you come out victorious. You've learned how to fight through that battle. So the next time something like that comes up, you're able to navigate it better, and you know how to get through it. So I would have to ask myself, what is this valley moment teaching me? What am I supposed to learn? What am I fortifying in my character through this experience? And so I would just say that that's another thing for me that I've had to reframe some of my valley moments and say, one of my favorite scriptures is the 23rd Psalm, and it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. And so you're walking through the valley. You're not going to stay in the valley. So there's a shadow there. You're afraid, but you're walking through. So you're going to come out on the other side. And then, life is peaks and valleys. So if you're in a valley moment, you can't get any lower than that. You're going to peak again at some time. So I always just hold that in the forefront of my mind and know that, okay, it might be bad right now, but it's not going to always be bad.
That's so powerful. I love that.
Yeah.
And so we talked about how amazing your wedding day was, right? When did you notice that things were changing in your marriage?
I have to say that for me, when things were getting bad, I didn't realize it. I think my ex-husband did a great job masking
and holding things in. And the problem with that is it builds a resentment. And so I think that he might have thought that things were supposed to look differently in a marriage, right? I don't know, and I've talked about this with some family members. I don't know if he thought that marriage was the woman is domesticated and staying home and cooking and cleaning and doing all those, things. And if that's your jam, that's your jam. Nothing against that. But the way I was raised, seeing a woman do the things and be out and, make her own money, take care of her kids and move and shake. I'm a mover and a shaker. I always have been. I never have been somebody that stayed in the house. If you know me from community happenings or groups. And one thing my siblings always say is, gosh, you know everybody. And every time you go out somewhere, you have to say hello, because that's how my character is. So if I've known you from somewhere, if I see you, I'm going to want to catch up with you, even if it's just a quick 2 minutes of hello, how are you doing, or what have you, but I'm going to speak, right? And so my network has grown from just being the social butterfly. So I've always been that way. Yeah. In college, I came through a sorority and one of the Divine Nine. And so, we have a lot of public service that we do, and we work through the framework to make sure we're serving our community. And so that was important. That was an important piece for me as well. And I was not going to do anything halfway. And when I joined a group, I commit to the group, right? And just like a mother and a wife in my family, I'm going to be committed to my family. But I feel like the two can coexist. And like I can be a good wife and a good mother in the household, but I can also serve my community and also contribute to the greater good. And so I feel like I had always had the sorority piece. We got married. I had a child before I was married, and then we had a child together, and then we added 2 more children throughout the course of our marriage. So I have a total of 4 kids. Early on in our marriage, you know, I graduated with my bachelor's, had been working in human services, saw that wasn't making enough money. When you're passionate, you want to help people. Unfortunately, those professions don't really pay a lot. But then I was looking at the landscape of jobs and seeing that, I really need a master's degree if I want to make more money. And so I went back and I did an accelerated master's degree in organizational leadership at the College of St. Mary. And, had a goal in mind. And I wrote down what my goal was, and it was on my advisor as I was going through that program of how much I wanted to be making and what I wanted to be doing. And I believe that if you affirm yourself, you will achieve what you're affirming, right? And that if you put something in front of you, you're also going to reach that goal. So I have, affirmation on my mirror to this day. But I saw that goal and I wanted to do better, and my ex-husband supported me through my master's degree as well. And so the goal was always to, make sure that we as a team could make a certain amount of money to take care of our family. I didn't want my kids to grow up in some of the environments that I grew up in. And I wanted to provide better for them because I feel like each generation should get better, right? And so if you know better, you do better. And my mom had her associate's degree for many years. She recently got her bachelor's in 2019. And so I didn't know I was considered a first-generation college student because my mom didn't have a bachelor's. And I thought, because my mom had a degree, that I was not a first-generation college student. But I'm happy to know that because she went to school, that helped me to take education seriously, right? And so in my marriage, as I'm ascending in work, I kept hitting this ceiling for salary, and I'm doing all this work. And it would happen that I would be in a position, I would lead in this position. A lot of times I would be the first person in a certain position. And so I would be setting the precedent of how this position is going to work out. And then I would give feedback to upper management that, hey, you really need to, look at increasing the salary of this position and adding more staff because this is my workload and this is what's going on and this is what is needed. Comparing this department to other, schools, because I worked a lot in higher education. And so looking at other campuses that have this same department, this is how many staff members they have. This is what their caseload is. So compare my caseload to what they have, and they have 3 staff members and I'm 1 person. And then sometimes as a Black woman, you're looked at as superwoman. You can do everything. You're so strong, put the cape on. And people don't think you need help because you can make it look effortless.
Yes.
That's what we were taught to do.
So true.
You got to do a lot with a little and make it look good, right? And you got to work twice as hard to get twice as, or just half of what someone else has that is not a Black woman, right? Or white counterparts, should I say. And so I feel like upper management didn't take that seriously. But the moment I would say, okay, this is starting to affect my health, and I'm not going to stress out about this because I understand that if I stroke out or if I die, you're going to replace me tomorrow. So let me not put my health at risk for this job. When I would step back from those positions, kid you not, the next person that came in, they would do exactly what I asked. They would add more staff. They would increase the position. They would change the size.
That's how it always happens. That's how it always happens. As soon as you leave, they start hiring all these other positions. And you're like, well, damn, if I would have had this when I worked here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, well, okay. So I just remember saying, and so with in terms of when my marriage had started going downhill, I think that my ex-husband wanted me to be more present in the home and not to do as much. But I felt like I'm balancing both, right? Mm-hmm. And so there were things, we had non-traditional gender roles in the household. And I think there is a stench of toxic masculinity that perhaps some people might have said to him like, oh, well, why are you doing laundry? Not when your wife isn't doing laundry, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not that I didn't, but he was so regimented in how he did things, like this many loads a day. We're going to set it up like this. We're going to fold like this. I'm the type of person like, if that's what you want to do, I'm going to let you hoop and let me know where you want me to fit in, right? Because if you have such a regiment that you don't want people to throw you off, I'm not going to interfere with that. If that makes you happy, let's do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then we had a thing where he would wash, we would fold and put away, what have you, right? That's just one example of household things. But I cook, clean. If I'm not regimented to where I'm like, I got to wipe this down every day, or I'd have to straighten up my books every day, or I'm not like that. But if it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, it's time to like get this together, then that's where I'm at, right? And so I think that kind of started to, cause a rift. And I think some resentment started building up. But what I really noticed was the demise of our marriage was when I finally got the job and the salary that I was working to get from what I put on my visor and that goal when I was in my master's degree program. And that was 10 years plus after my master's degree, right? I remember saying a prayer. And I am spiritual, okay? So if you remember in the Bible, Laban was a guy who kind of tricked his son-in-law to marry one daughter and then made him work for him for 7 years. And then when he did everything, he tacked something else on, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was talking to supervisors and I was like, hey, this is how much I need to be making to come into this job. Let's start you off here, but I'm confident that I can get you to what you're asking for in a year. I said, okay, let's see, I'll give you a year. So in a year, he got me halfway to where I was asking. And so I'm like, okay, he's still working through some things, but I started to listen like, at universities, there's pay transparency and you can see how much is in the department, how much is allocated budget-wise and what have you. Well, at least public universities. And so I was starting to see that our department was bringing in more money. We were thriving, we were doing well, but my salary wasn't changing. Mm-hmm. And there are other steps to getting your salary to increase at a university level. You got to get approval, right? You got to go through the board of regents. You got to go through the chancellor, all this other stuff, right? The dean, all this stuff. So I understand that there were different channels to get me there, but I felt like, okay, we're bringing in this money and I'm still not, being given what I'm asked. So I had this prayer and I said, God, please remove the Laban over my salary. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like there's all this trickery. There's telling me this and that, and I'm not getting there. And for some reason, I'm capped, right? Whereas my ex-husband has a bachelor's degree, but he worked in a field in IT and graphic designs and computers at jobs where they just pay them. They pay them a lot for having a bachelor's. I'm like, I have a master's degree, and this is what I'm making. So I prayed that prayer. Kid you not, I got headhunted to apply for a position and at the employer that I'm at now. And so I thought about it, and it's in human resources. And I was like, well, I was always on the other side of human resources, right? So I worked at the Health Careers Resource Center. I worked as a job employment coach. I'm doing resume writing. I was a director of employment services. So I'm helping individuals get jobs. I'm helping them shape up their resume, helping them with interviewing skills, putting those job opportunities in front of them, making connections with employers so that we can advertise their jobs and send them people and make these fits and matches and all of that, helping students get into medical school and into nursing school and helping them to write those essays and understanding like what they're looking for. And then when you come out with your medical degree, your doctorate degree, or if you come out with your occupational therapist doctorate, right? How do we get you set up to get these jobs or what have you? So I was doing all of that on the other side. I didn't think about going internally into HR. But when I got this email, I said, I think I can apply for this. I can do this job. So I did, made it to the second round and didn't get that position. I get another call back from my current employer and they're like, we didn't go with you for this position, but we think you would be great for this position that we have. So, and I said, okay, well, what's the salary? And it was the same salary as the position I was interviewed for. So I was like, okay. And they're like, the person here, she's still here. She got promoted. She can train you. And we think this will be a better fit because I was a coach through this school system. And they didn't want me being pulled away from the students I was coaching because the other job was in recruiting and I would have had to travel a lot and what have you. And so I said, okay, I think this will be a good match. And I always pray also, and I think talked about this before as a Black woman, it can be hard, right, in the corporate world in terms of management and who manages you and what they expect from you and the microaggressions that come out. And so what I've learned along the way is I also pray over my supervisors. Whoever is my supervisor, I need them to be someone who allows me to grow in this position, who doesn't micromanage, who isn't gonna, have these different microaggressions or racism or anything like that. And so I pray over my supervisors. And I find that has allowed me to move into positions where I can breathe and I can do my thing and I can shine. And so I really feel like this position that I'm in now was a God-ordained position because I didn't even interview for it. But I was told, because you're a coach and you're internal, we can copy your application over to this. I know you interviewed for this position, but you're really great for this one. Okay, great. And so, and it was a salary that I was looking for.
Great when it works out that way.
It was a salary I was looking for. So I go back to my ex-husband and I'm like, I got the job and this is what we'll be making. And we were in the process of building a new home. And when we were building the home, he said, I don't know about this salary, or I don't know about the new mortgage payment. I don't want to be house poor. I want us to make sure we're doing well. And I said, well, if I get this job, we'll be okay. So get the job. And he's like, oh, wow, you're making that. So then it was like team effort. Yay, go team. We're going to have enough. We're building this house. We were probably 6 months out from moving in. And had spent a year prior picking everything out, the finishes, the lot, the neighborhood, all of that. The next year was building. So we were about 6 months into the build. And so then he said, well, you don't really need me anymore. You don't need my leadership. You make more money than me. And I was like, huh? And so it's almost as if he had one foot in and one foot out and he was ready to go, but now this is the icing on the cake. Like, what do you need me for? And I'm thinking it's a team effort. I'm thinking, let's go, finally reach the pinnacle of what we were trying to do. We're just turning this corner in our finances. We're going to be able to provide for our kids like we want to. We're going to be able to have the house that we want and what have you. And then here's this monkey wrench thrown in. And so then I'm like, okay, well, and he was like, I'm turning 40. I feel like there's more life ahead. I feel like there's somebody else out there for me. And I said, oh, okay. He said, and possibly for you too. But I think, even if we separate, I need to just figure this out. But I also think that there's, other people out there for us, and then we would still be good friends. I'm like, wow, here's my thing. Here's my thing.
Man.
I am not someone who needs to be kept. I'm not someone who desperately needs a man either. And I'm not someone who's going to try to make you stay, right? And I think initially I was like, well, if you want to go out, do what you got to do, cool, whatever. But I don't feel like learning somebody again. I don't feel like going through all of this. We have all this equity in this relationship.
Yeah.
I don't feel like starting over. So go do you. That's how I felt initially. And I was like, you know what? No. I'm a woman who's always had options. If I wanted to be, this type of person that wasn't faithful or wasn't loyal, I could have been, but I didn't choose to do that. I chose my family. So I'm like, okay, well, if this is what it's going to be, you can go. I'll make it somehow, but I'll make it, And so it wasn't anything that I thought I would be going through, but it happened.
Yeah.
And so at the time that I just started this new job, so I was a month in when we separated. And I'm like, that could have derailed me. This is my new opportunity. I'm finally making the salary I wanted. People believe in me in this position. I have to prove myself, because you know how it is. When you start a job, you got to show them the skill set you have, or you got to prove yourself. So I'm like, I got to prove myself, but I have this monkey wrench where my whole life is being like, the rug is being ripped from underneath me. And I can't fumble. I got to keep going, right? And thankfully enough that this job came when it did, because if I didn't have this job, I wouldn't be able to keep my house and pay my mortgage and take care of my kids on one salary. But we were able to work it out. I was able to keep the house. I did have to I didn't do a refinance. I did an assumption. I got the house in the divorce, and I did a loan assumption. But I had to close on my house again. And luckily, I had money. I had started a savings account, high yield savings, put money in there each month. And by the time it was time for me to have to close on my house again, I had $5,000 in the bank, right? Not a whole lot, but something for me, you know? And I had enough to close on your house. And that's the biggest thing. My kids didn't have an interruption in where they lived. They didn't even know, like, this was going on. So they got to keep the household that they were growing up in, and I got to keep them in a stable environment because of that. So,
Wow.
a lot.
There's so much. It's just, when I saw that things were happening like that in your life, I think one of the things that, I don't know if it necessarily impressed me or if I was just kind of in awe, like, is that you held things together so that, like, on the outside, people didn't know what you were going through. Like, your close friends, your circle, they knew, but, like, other people didn't know because you were still a leader. You were still the president of this and that and this and all of those things. And it was devastating to watch it happen because I could tell that, like, the rug was just totally pulled out from under you. And it was just like, how do I regroup? How do I rebuild? And what do you think? Was it your faith? Was it your friends? Like, what was it that got you through that most difficult time?
All of that, faith, friends, family. I'll tell you what, the LGBTQ community, my gay male friends, bar none, held me together, okay? Showed up for me, showed up for my son. I have a son in the LGBTQ community, not really the best relationship with his dad. We were a Christian household, and, a lot of Christian households frown upon that. And so it wasn't a good mix, right? And so being able to have male figures in this community to come in and mentor my child and help my child navigate these feelings and how the rejection and just different things, how to show up, because not only are you a Black male in the world, you're a Black gay male in the world. And so you are going through different types of things, and you're embracing this early on, right? As a freshman, as a sophomore in high school, and you're dealing with all of this. And so kids can be cruel, and the way that kids are raised, sometimes that, can show up, and it's a hard road to travel. And so having my friends and the support system, my family, I think I did, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat and be like, I was in therapy. I've been in therapy on and off, and therapy is super helpful, but I've had to do a combination of things to get through. And so I know, like, if you have an EAP at your job, the EAP, I've done the free counseling sessions to get me through, like, this is what I can do right now, right? And even leading up to the divorce, I was in therapy regularly because I was trying to see, like, is there something wrong with me that I need to, how can I serve everyone and make everybody happy, right? And how can I be the mom, the wife here in the home, and also do what I need to do in the community and on my job, because I don't want to stay home. I want to ascend up the ranks. Like, I've always had goals of, being in leadership on the job. But so how do I still have my aspirations and also be this wife and mother? And so that was my inner conflict, and that was me going, and it wasn't that I wasn't a good wife and mother. I feel like I had criticism because I wasn't at home baking cookies or doing, like, you were being judged for. I felt like I was being judged a lot. And so, and not by my own family, by my in-laws, if I'm being frank. And I just think their family dynamic, how they grew up, was different than how I grew up. And we had to learn how to provide for ourselves. I've been working since I was 11. And the Tasman corn. Working at a
That's in the Midwest.
And because we came from because we came from a large household, that helped my mom, that took off some of the, load for my mom having to shop for back to school. We would work in the summers in the Tassel Corner. You would get this big check at the end of the summer. And at the time, it was like $500. We thought it was a lot of money, but it was like something. It was the 90s, and $500 was a long way. And so we would get all our school supplies and all our school clothes and all of that. And so I've been working since I was 11. So that's what I know. But still having fun, because like I said, I was in drill team. So in the summers, I'm in parades, I'm traveling, going to competitions, doing drill team and all of that. Got my kids involved in drill teams, right? And so it's become a family thing. And so that's what I know. But therapy definitely helped me to be like, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have to be able to, like, whose standards are you measuring yourself off of? And why do you think you need to do X, Y, Z? And so coming into my own, being divorced, I've been able to embrace what's good about me and some what's bad. Because I think we tend to work from a deficit model. We don't look at what's great about us. We tend to look at, and even in working at HR, you have your performance reviews, right? You're going to have your performance reviews. You might get 1 or 2 things that you need to improve on, but you had 8 other things that you did well this year. And you're going to focus on 2 things that you did not do well. Or that you can improve on, right?
Every time.
And so it's like our society has taught us this deficit model. Well, how do I embrace what's good about me and the positive things, And so that's going to be a continual process. You're going to have to always reframe and see where you can improve work, embrace what's good about you and not harp on bad things. But, so I don't know. It's just been a journey. It's been a journey, but definitely family has been my rock. They've come through for sure. And I'm glad that my mom raised us to be close like that. And my friends like you.
Yes.
And girl trip.
We were doing a lot.
Girl trips definitely helped me.
Yes.
Podcasts are helpful. Self-help books, church, listening to different pastors. And I just love now that, thank God for streaming services, right? Because you can go to a church in your city, right? But you can also listen to other schools of thoughts and other churches that do things differently. And I like to get a lot of different perspectives. So that has helped me to get through. Continue to show up.
And you show up in an amazing way.
Thank you.
You definitely show up in an amazing way. You're so resilient. And your story, I think, is just so uplifting for people, because a lot of times when something that devastating happens, this is a complete change in the whole world.
Completely.
Your whole family just completely, and being able to be resilient through all of that and put on that positive face for the rest of the community and everyone else who looks up to you as a leader.
Gotta keep going.
And have to hold that in. What is the best leadership advice you've ever been given?
I think I was told to fail forward. And what that essentially meant was you got to be willing to learn as you go. And if you're going to make a mistake, make it fast and fail forward. Make it and keep moving forward. And learn as you go from that mistake, and then improve, refine, and keep going so that you can continue to ascend up the ranks.
Oh, I love that.
So don't get stuck on, I made a mistake. Make that mistake, figure out what you need to do to pivot, and keep moving and keep going forward. You got to keep putting one step in front of the other. So a lot of people say, if you're going to do it afraid, do it afraid. Do it afraid, fail forward, keep going. And then the other one is to eat your frog in the morning. Have you ever heard about that?
I've never heard of that.
Nothing is harder than eating a frog.
Okay.
How do you eat a frog? You just gobble it down, or one bite at a time, but you have to eat a frog, right? And after you do that, nothing is as bad as it seems. So whatever your frog is for the day, that task that you don't want to do, that we keep putting off, instead of do your easy task first and then saving that hard thing, that's going to keep you in the mode of procrastination. Do that hard thing that you don't want to do. Have that difficult conversation. Have that difficult phone call that you need to make. Have that meeting that you don't want to do, or do that report that you don't want to do. Do that first. And then from there, it's going to be smooth sailing. So those are some lessons that I've learned in leadership that I feel like has been helpful. And I'll tell you this too. Had I not been divorced, I would not have become the president of the chapter in my sorority. I would not have, because my ex-husband did not like when I was doing so much in the organization because he felt like it was pulling me away from him a lot. But being the president of my chapter gave me a great distraction from the divorce and everything that was happening. I was divorced at the end of 2023. I became the president of my chapter in July of 2024. And I'm about to end my term as president. So it's been 2 years. And there's been a lot that I've learned in this organization. I've been a member 20 years. And so I was like, okay, I don't think I'm ready for that. But okay, well, let me just do it. And then there's some things that I'm afraid of, but let me do it afraid. And you can't be afraid of criticism. You're going to get criticism. Anything you do, you're going to get criticism. People are going to say, well, you could have did this better, or if I were to do it, I would have did this, or, you're going to hear that. You're going to have to let it roll off your back, water off your duck's back. You don't have to just let it roll because you're going to get that. And it doesn't mean it doesn't sting, it doesn't hurt, it hurts. But I try to take it and say, well, what could I have done better? How could I have approached this differently? I always try to go back like forensically and look through what I did and how I could have done it better and what I learned from that and how can I improve. So I think that's important too.
Yeah. Is there anything we didn't touch on today that you think would be beneficial for the audience to hear?
I think that we, as women, need to embrace our qualities and understand that we can lead and we can still have family and we can still do exciting things. And that we don't always have to meet society's standards. I don't think our standards that we were raised in are realistic. And I also think that it comes from a patriarchal viewpoint, right? And what we're seeing in our politics right now is wanting women to stay home and wanting, women to have more kids in an economy that we can't really afford to have all these kids in, right? But I think the beauty of this time is that you have more and more women who are like, I'm okay being the rich auntie. I don't want to have kids.
I'm not saying never, but I've been rocking the rich auntie vibes for a long time.
But you have more women that are okay saying that out loud. Like, I work with somebody now. She's like, my husband and I, we'd rather travel. We don't want to have kids. And they go on amazing trips. And I'm like, okay, that's understandable. So I think we like to sell the American dream as, being married to like a man and a wife being married and the 2.5 kids and the picket fence, right? And everybody doesn't want that. Right. And so I think that as women, we just need to embrace in our journeys that we're going to show up in different capacities in different ways. It's all still a part of the village. Everybody still contributes. Everybody still has value and meaning. It might not look like how it's painted to us, but embrace what you are in right now and how that shows up for you and have fun while you're doing it. And even if it's hard, keep going, one foot in front of the other.
Yes, keep going.
You'll get out of those valley moments and you'll peak again. So that's what I would say.
That is great advice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a guest on Breaking Right today. For all of our listeners, I really hope that you got something from this discussion, some profiles in courage and resilience in leadership. And if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. We would love to continue to put episodes together like this that are inspirational. And thanks again, Nadira.
Thank you.
Thanks.